So let's bring in NBC News national political correspondent Steve Kornacki over at the Big Board. Steve, what impacts could a running mate have on the ticket? What are you looking at?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is the home state effect, the idea of a home state effect. When you hear the name Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona, every 4 years when there's a Veep stakes, it seems we talk about, hey, they're going to put this person on to get this state. That rarely seems to be the move, but would it be different this year? A couple ways of looking at this. Just as a reminder, Pennsylvania, 19 electoral votes. Of all the core battleground states, this has the most electoral votes. Pennsylvania does. So just when you put those electoral college road to 270 puzzle pieces together, this one looms particularly large. And, I don't think I have to remind anybody, but the margin here was just 80,000 votes for Joe Biden over Donald Trump there, barely 1 point in 2020. And of course, if you went back to 2016, Donald Trump won this state, part of that very narrow path to the presidency he carved then. And of course, if you look down at Arizona, another state that Biden won in 2020, even closer, just over 10,000 votes, 0.3 of 1 point. Again, that was a flip from a Trump win by 3.5 points back in 2016. So the question with the Shapiro or a Kelly in states like that is that's not much of a difference to make there potentially. Could they make a decisive difference? So what we've got here, let's call this up for you here. Take a second to explain this, but these are the vice presidential nominees, the running mates for Democrats going back about 32 years right here. And what we're comparing is we're looking at, so for instance, look at Tim Kaine in 2016. Remember, Tim Kaine was Hillary Clinton's running mate. In the election before 2016, before Kaine went on the ticket, versus 2016, the national popular vote moved 2 points in the Republicans' direction. Comparatively, though, Virginia, when Kaine was on the ticket, did not move 2 points in the Republicans' direction. It actually moved a point in the Democrats' direction. So it was a little bit at odds, Virginia was, with the national trend. It was more Democratic. So does that automatically mean Kaine produced that difference? Well, no. There's state-specific factors. There's long-term demographic trends. We've seen a blue trend in Virginia. But you start to see a pattern. Look, Delaware, it was not in play. But in the 2008 election, it swung 10 points. Nationally, it swung 10 points towards the Democrats. Delaware, with Biden on Obama's ticket, swung 17 points. So, is there a home state effect somewhere in there? You go back to Al Gore in 1992. It's getting sort of ancient history here. But the popular vote swung 13 points nationally in the Democrats' favor in 92. And, of course, when Bill Clinton picked Al Gore, Tennessee actually was still a blue state and a Democratic state. We didn't call them blue states, but it went even more. So we do see somewhat of a trend, exactly what that number would add up to, because, again, there's so many other factors that go into this. But you see it in, you didn't quite see it with Harris, but you see it so often, you do wonder in a state like Arizona or a state like Pennsylvania, given that we're talking maybe about a point either way, could that point be accounted for by something like we're looking at here?
Well,
so interesting.
And let's talk about the two candidates there. Josh Shapiro's approval ratings in Pennsylvania and Senator Kelly's approval ratings in Arizona. Who has the bigger impact in their state?
Tough to say, because here's the other wild card. We'll go back here, see if we can call up the Pennsylvania results from 2022. Going to take me 1 second. We're going to get the governor's race from 2022, and there it is. Okay, so now remember the circumstances in Pennsylvania. Shapiro won his race in Pennsylvania by a much bigger margin than Kelly won his race in Arizona, though there are two things that you keep in mind when you look at this. Number one, in governor's races in general, I don't care what state you're talking about, we talk always about the polarization, people voting more and more straight ticket, all Democratic, all Republican. We see a little bit more flux in statewide races for governor than we do in federal races like U.S. Senate. So that might be a factor here. Also keep in mind, Doug Mastriano, the Republican nominee in Pennsylvania, was somebody a lot of Republican leaders did not want as their nominee. Things he had said about the 2020 election, about January 6th. He was very tightly aligned with Trump on all of the January 6th rhetoric. So was he a particularly poor fit here? How much of this is Shapiro's strength? How much of this was Mastriano's weakness? Of course, you have to say the reason Mastriano, a big reason reason Mastriano was the Republican nominee was his connection to Donald Trump and his connection to Trump and his rhetoric about the 2020 election. But if you go down to Arizona, now it was a bit, as I say, a bit of a similar story in Arizona. That is the governor's race. We're going to show you the Senate race from 2022. Blake Masters, another Trump-aligned candidate who Republicans nationally believe badly underperformed in what they saw as a very winnable race. You see, it was a 5-point difference here for Mark Kelly. And again, talking about Biden winning the state by 10,000, that's a lot more than Biden won it by. And again, there might be a difference here. A federal office, U.S. Senate versus a governor's race in Pennsylvania. This might bring more polarization into it. But I think you are left asking a bit of the same question here when you look at this result. Does it say more about Kelly's strengths, or does it say more about Masters' weaknesses, especially when you consider that in 2022 in Arizona, there was no swing state in the country in 2022 where the Republicans nominated a more Trump-aligned slate of candidates. We're talking governor, Senate, attorney general, secretary of state. Then in Arizona, they all lined up with him on things like the 2020 election in January 6th.
So, Joe, making the latest on the running mate search. I mean, Pritzker, Buttigieg, Beshear not out of the mix. We're told by the vice president, her team, a decision has not been made yet, but there does seem to be a clear top three at this moment, though, again, we caution it's fluid. And that would be Governor Shapiro, that would be Senator Kelly, and Governor Walz in Minnesota. Many people have really looked at Walz and the surge he's made in the last couple weeks. He is the Democrat who sort of coined the idea that Trump and Vance are weird. Though Minnesota, not a battleground state, unlike the other two. It is battleground state adjacent in terms of with Wisconsin and Michigan, and not so far from Pennsylvania. He actually seems to be the favorite of progressives in the party who think that he has a really good mix of a resume that includes being a teacher, being a combat veteran, and also being very left on certain issues, but doing so in a folksy manner. The question is the battleground state calculus going to win out? And I think in particular they're zeroing on Pennsylvania, even more so than Arizona, zeroing in on Pennsylvania. Yeah. That Shapiro, who is so popular there, and Harris, that was one of the states where Biden was doing pretty well. We haven't seen too much polling for Harris yet, although we know that it's close. There's a sense among some Democrats that they think Shapiro gets her over the finish line, and this might be a Shapiro versus Walz decision with Kelly third at the moment.
Yeah, it is interesting. And Steve Kornacki, it is what's so fascinating about these decisions. Let's say that it narrows down to Walz or Shapiro. Shapiro gives you the most important battleground state in the calculus in Pennsylvania. Walz gives you a demographic, possibly, that Joe Biden was very strong with, that Kamala Harris may not be as strong with, and that is older, white, Midwestern voters who aren't college educated specifically, where Joe Biden always seemed to overperform from what people expected. So this is really a specific state versus Walz possibly helping in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania just because of regional and demographic factors. Break that down for us, if you will.
Yeah, although I got to say, so Minnesota, where Tim Walz was elected governor and then, reelected, it really is a good microcosm of the dynamic you're talking about there. This big divide we've seen defining American politics, white college-educated voters becoming more Democratic, often found in the suburbs and metropolitan areas, white voters without college degrees, often found in rural areas, exurbs of more blue-collar areas, going more and more Republican. Huge populations in Minnesota of both of them. And the state really is kind of divided. This oversimplifies it a bit, but, big metro area right around the Twin Cities here, full of college-educated, higher income, Democratic-leaning, Democratic-surging electorates, and kind of almost a ring, a half a ring around the rest of the state, with some exceptions there, where you just see county after county with large blue-collar white populations that have swung dramatically towards the Republicans, especially in the Trump era. The thing with Walz's performance, you're looking at it right here in 2022. Look, he won the state by 8 points in that governor's election in 2022. it actually doesn't show any difference, any meaningful difference from the way that Joe Biden won this state in 2020, or even for that matter, not huge from Hillary Clinton in 2016. There is a bit of a shift from 2016, certainly, because it was a much closer race. But the basic dynamic, I'll give you an example here. Just take a look here. Excuse me. Take a look here at Becker County. This is a kind of an example here of a county. I'm going to show you. Tim Walz loses this by 32 points. This county could be a stand-in for a lot of the red you see on this map. He loses it by 32. Well, Biden lost it by 30 in 2020. This is one of those places, though, that swung incredibly Republican, because take a look here, 2016, 33. Now go back to 2012. Now you're getting back to what this county used to look like. Barack Obama only lost this thing by 14.5 points. This is one of the keys to Obama's strength in 08 and 12. In an area like this, large white blue-collar population, Obama wasn't necessarily winning, but he was more than holding his own. The floor fell out for Democrats here in 16. You know, Biden bumped it up a tick here, and you look at Walz's performance in 2022. It's right between Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, and it's nowhere near Barack Obama. And again, I'm showing you one county here. I could be showing you dozens of counties in Minnesota. The strength for Walz and what won him the election is sort of a standard Democratic strength these days. Take a look at Hennepin County, Minneapolis, biggest in the state. You know, Walz wins this thing 70-26. What did Biden win it? 71-27. He basically got Biden's numbers in the big Democratic places and Biden's numbers in the blue-collar Republican areas, and he won the state by basically the same margin as Biden.